And so, as we've already said, well, welcome. As I say, it's good to see so many people in the call. And as we said, please share your name and your school and your email in the chat so we can get back to you and we know who's here and we can make contact and you can make contact with us. So what we're going to talk about, I'll give you a brief overview in a moment and the aims of this afternoon. Anne is then going to pick up around mentor training and the mentor developments that we've undertaken. Rachel, who's also on the course, is then going to talk a little bit about our intensive training and practice, our ITAPs. Then we're going to move to Helen, who's going to talk about funding, and then we'll think about any next steps. So I'll start with the overview, and I'll do my best to be brief because I don't want to steal the thunder of anybody else. The whole aim, I guess, of this meeting is to keep people informed and be sort of open and talk about things that you might have heard about, or but really give you a lot of information. In terms of our mentor training package, as it says there, we've developed a 3-tier mentor training package, which is really good CPD. It's high quality support for our mentors, which will clearly have an impact on our associate teachers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've been working with the West Midlands Mentor Partnership, ITA Partnership, to think about mentor workload and reduce that as much as possible. And I think that one of the aims of this session is really to reassure people that we're really thinking about mentors' workload, and wherever possible, we've aimed to reduce that. And we'll talk about that as time wears on this afternoon. And within that reassurance is to say that a lot of the things that we're doing are business as usual. A lot of the paperwork that it's the same paperwork with maybe the odd tweak. The meetings that you've had previously, they're the same. So we want to reinforce that business as usual. So we've been working with the DFE around our accreditation and around mentoring, and we've developed mentor training, which Alan will talk about. And this is one of our new things. The DFE says that there has to be up to 20 hours of mentor training, but Helen and Anne are going to talk about that in a little bit in terms of what you're already doing. We are going to be accrediting prior learning. So, it may be that a mentor in a school has already done an MPQ LTD. Well, that would be accredited already. They wouldn't have to do that again. We're thinking of workload. We're thinking of reducing wherever possible. Rachel's going to talk about our ITAPs. A lot of work has gone into ITAPs, and our trainees will be practicing some elements within schools, and Helen will talk about that, and Rachel as we go through. So that's a new thing, but again, not onerous, but it will in fact have a great positive impact on our associate teachers' practice. We have got and will have a Brightspace platform where all of our CPD you'll be able to access. Mentors will be able to log in, they'll have a login and have access to all of that. Before any of that starts, we're doing a diagnostic. So the first thing that a mentor will do is our diagnostic. So they'll log in and that will look at their prior experiences, it'll look at all of the expertise that they already have, thinking about, what might they need to do. But, we really value that prior learning. So I mentioned the business as usual. Well, lots of things are, because you'll be used to attending the mentor CPD, you'll be used to having placement briefings. All of these things will still continue. You'll be used to having university staff coming into school to support associate teachers at review meetings, progress meetings, talking about the curriculum. Well, that will still continue. And this is part of the mentor training. It's just that we probably haven't called it the mentor training, if you like, I guess, in the past. Our placement documentation, as I said, there are a few tweaks, but you're very familiar with. You're familiar with the trackers, the mentor prompts, all of those. We've put together a CPD calendar, which we've had before, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think our one-stop shop, as I call it, is our primary partnership website, and that's still there. That has all of our information, it has all of our documentation, and that will still be there. So a lot of business as usual. So I'm going to say no more and pass over to Anne.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Just to say, if you have just joined us, I've heard a number of people entering the conversation. Would you mind putting your name, your school and your email in the chat bar, please, so that we can contact you after this presentation and share any tweaks that we might make at the end of when we've had our session 3 later on this afternoon. So this slide just outlines the changes in terminology, once again, you might say. And I think the information for you, perhaps as head teachers or IT mentors, is that lead mentors will become professional mentors, class teachers will become placement mentors, and university tutors will become lead mentors, as this aligns with the expectations of DFE training for lead mentors. Associate teachers are the same, but may refer to as trainees in some documentation. So just a brief overview, and you'll hear that terminology throughout this presentation as well. As always, you can access, as always, you can access, can you see everything, or just it's gone a bit blurry? Yeah, you can access all mentoring on our Mentoring 2024-25 updates as part of our training primary partnership website, and these updates will be shared on this space as well as via our weekly shout outs as well. Our BCU available mentor development curriculum, CPD, is actually broken down into 3 tiers and units. And some of you as head teachers might have seen that information, which has been shared in our previous emails in May and earlier on as well. We will go through this shortly in a little bit more detail, but we have tried to make this content as easily and accessible as possible. So this includes, short asynchronous sessions and input, which can be completed flexibly in you or your mentor's own time. And much of that training is what Paul has emphasised at the beginning of this session, is what you're already doing in school and currently being supported by our university tutors. So this won't change significantly. What we're offering you is that available enhanced CPD that will be available on our Brightspace platform. If you, as a head teacher, you would like your placement mentors or professional mentors to engage with the training on Brightspace, you have to register them. There is a link on the Mentoring 2024-25 page on our partnership website, which I've shared the link for earlier in this presentation. And further details have also been included in the recent email and letter sent out from David Charles, our head of college. So please look at this information. As it may have, or look out for this information. It might have gone directly into your inquiry box. So thinking about this is an overview of our available mentor development curriculum, CPD. This is what the whole curriculum that we've devised looks like. But please be reassured that once your mentor has completed that first stage, the diagnostic, they will know how much of this training they'll need to complete or how much they'll be able to APEL. And we're going to break this down further in the next couple of slides. So Tier 1 is designed to support the underpinning elements of effective mentoring in school. For those of you who've been working on the Early Career Framework programme, you will be very much familiar with the content that has been shared in this Tier 1 section. And actually, if you've already had ECT training or have worked and done some other sort of mentoring qualification, you will already be able to APEL those 6 hours of this part of Tier 1. So as I said, looking at your diagnostic will help you decide how much of the training that you'll need to engage with. So mentor development, again in Tier 2, looks more closely at our primary and early years curriculum and those effective mentoring principles that includes part of the training that you will have, that 1 hour face-to-face, which could incorporate equivalent mentor training that you have already had, or to talk with your university tutor about the mentoring process and expectations. Again, we're here to support you as a mentor, as a head teacher, supporting your mentors in school to think about workload and whatever we can APEL across from tier 1 and tier 2, that will again come through very strongly from that diagnostic tool, which they will complete right at the beginning of this whole process. Our BCU mentor coaching model, which yes is new, although not new in terms of for the content necessarily, the what to now what so what process, will help you to give effective feedback during the deliberate practice and coaching sessions and lesson observations. So for some of you, that's not going to be new practice. This is the most important section, tier 3, because it essentially looks at what your mentors are already doing in school and how they are working, that existing relationship that you have on our school-based training placement. So, they'll continue to work as normal to support our associate teachers on their placements. This includes the conversations that you have both online and face-to-face with our university tutors, incorporates lesson observations, progress meetings, review meetings, talking about those critical incidents with associate teachers, you understanding or, of being reminded of our BCU curriculum and using those subject prompts. So really all of the things that you are doing or your mentors are doing currently is going to be part of that existing training. It's not going to be new training, it's existing. To support you further, we have put together 2 mentor training calendars for the year, one for the PGCE and one for BA QTS. So again, this outlines all the available training that your mentors will have access to if they require that training, or if they want to take part in that training, or if they've been able to APEL some of that training. But includes all of the school briefing meetings that are really important for you to have that overview of the placement and the school visits as well. So I've incorporated this in the calendar and you can click on the link. This is already up on our primary partnership website for you to access as well. And the same for our BA QTS training calendar. Again, this is already on our partnership page, so you can see all the relevant interactions that mentors would be expected to have during their work with either BA Year 1, BA Year 2 or BA Year 3 associate teacher. So I think we're now going to move on to the next part of our presentation, is looking at intensive training and practice. I know Rachel is going to lead us through that. And please, as we said, if there are any questions that have come within the chat bar or you suddenly think of you as you go through the presentation, we'll have an opportunity at the end to discuss these as well. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. And so I'm Rachel Gillette, and I'm the deputy course leader on the PGCE course, but I've been leading on the intensive training and practice elements of our curriculum. And I know some of you will be familiar with this because I recognise some names. Some people have been involved in this earlier in the process. So the aim of this part is really to give you an overview, an introduction to what the intensive training and practice elements of our curriculum are, and much more information will be available on the Brightspace platform when you need it, and if you need it for the trainees that are going to be in school with you. We feel that this is a really good opportunity to enhance the practice of our associate teachers, as we call them, and to really enhance our culture of high expectations that we have for our associate teachers as they go through the course. But it's also an opportunity to enhance the collaboration with schools that work with us and with the teachers that we're training. So the next few slides are just going to really look at the policy paper from the DfE about intensive training and practice, and then we'll look in a little bit more detail about the ITAPs that we have developed for our curriculum at BCU. So the purpose of intensive training and practice is to focus on specific elements of teacher training curriculum, and it will consolidate trainees' knowledge of the key evidence-based principles for effective teaching and to enable them to apply their learning into their developing professional practice. So really the focus is to strengthen those links with the classroom. So because of that, some of the elements will obviously take place in the school environment, and that's why we want you to be aware of these going forward too. So there are some key features of intensive training and practice. A lot of this will happen in university. So there'll be some expert input that would typically include an introduction to aspects of practice, looking at that critical analysis of the evidence that underpins certain aspects, opportunities to observe examples of practice either via video or in the classroom environment, and then a deconstruction of this practice so that real specific focus thought to be given to those specific elements. And then there's the opportunity for our associate teachers to apply it into their classroom practice. And this is why the intensive training and practice elements are a little bit different to the rest of the school placements. The intensive training and practice focuses are on specific foundational or pivotal areas of the curriculum. So the expert input and that feedback that they get from us as their lead mentors or you in school will focus on the granular aspects of practice, which is obviously different from the standard placement. In standard placement experience, it's a more immersive opportunity to develop as the complete package of a teacher rather than focusing on those elements. So that's why the intensive training and practice is that little bit different. When we've been developing our intensive and training practice elements of the curriculum, we've adapted the 5-stage framework that you'll see on the screen here. And these are the aspects that will be included in all of the intensive training and practice elements. So there'll be the area will be introduced to the associate teachers so that they can think about the theory of the teaching and the learning. And there'll be lectures and seminars. Then there'll be time to analyse. So associate teachers will analyse expert teaching, looking at lesson observations and videos, and then they'll look at how it's modelled. Then there'll be time to prepare, so use approximations to practice and get that feedback. So that deliberate practice, that instructional coaching, that rehearsal and co-planning. And then there'll be opportunity for our associate teachers to enact their learning in the classroom environment. And that's where that learning is going to be applied into the classroom. And then obviously we need to assess how well our associate teachers have developed their knowledge and understanding. So there'll be opportunities for discussions, lesson observations, critical incidents, which lots of you will be really familiar with, reflection time, and then that target setting. I can see a question in the chat about the ITAP practice. I'll come back to that in a minute, but thank you for putting that in. These are the focus areas for our ITAP. So we've thought really carefully about which areas are going to have the most impact on our associate teachers. We've thought about the context that of the schools that our associate teachers are in. We've thought about what other providers have been looking at, and we've looked at advice from the DFE. So these are our areas that we're going to be focusing on. You'll notice that some say PGCE, so those are for our postgraduate associate teachers, and there'll be 4 ITAPs for those that course. For our undergrad course, we have mapped out which will take place in year 1 of our course. We've also mapped out there which will take place in subsequent years for our year 2 and our year 3 students, but we're not starting with those at this time. So next year it will be our postgraduate associate teachers will complete 4 of those ITAPs, and our year 1s undergrads as well. And you'll see there we've got a behaviour which focuses on the pivotal area of routines and transitions, and that we know that needs to happen really early on in their course, because that needs to be our associate teachers need to be quite confident with that before they can apply the learning in the classroom. The second one will be focusing on phonics, but really thinking about articulating those pure sounds and oral blending. And we haven't ignored that from the PGCE course. We'll be teaching that throughout the course, but not as an intensive training and practice element. And then our third one is modelling and guided practice, and that will focus on the pivotal area of modelling and guided practice in maths, where our associate teachers will develop the ability to model and guide the pupils to ensure that they're successful in their independent practice. And then we have adaptive teaching, which focuses on scaffolding, and assessment, which focuses on use of effective questioning to assess pupils' understanding and plan those next steps. So as we've planned these areas, we've thought about the ITT ECF, and we've also thought about our BCU curriculum key themes, which again, if you've had our associate teachers before, you'll be really familiar with those key themes. The majority of this teaching for the intensive training and practice will happen in university. We will be putting extra information onto Brightspace so you can see what is expected then of our associate teachers when they come into school. So there'll be certain aspects that need to happen in school, but this will just be for 2 days for each ITAP. And as I said, the training will be there to support you with that. So we'll monitor then the impact, and we've said assess is one of the key aspects of intensive training and practice. So that will take place in university and in the school setting, but it will also be an opportunity for our trainees to complete their critical incidents, which are part of the review meetings and progress meetings. And this is an opportunity to revisit the ITAP focus and enable us to monitor the impact on broader practice and over a longer period of time. So thinking about key roles and responsibilities, Anne's already said that university tutors will be the lead mentors. We have been designing the intensive training and practice, and we'll be delivering many elements of this part of the curriculum. We are also there to support mentors in school to understand and be able to fulfil their role in the ITAP elements of the curriculum, so that our mentors can, our lead mentors can support the placement mentors in accessing the training, and to be able to support our placement mentors when they facilitate the school-based elements of the ITAP and provide that focused mentoring and support and feedback. Okay, shall I just answer the question that's in the chat as that's related to the ITAPs before we pass it over to Helen? So there's a question, can professional mentors go and see the ITAP practice in a school or university to see how and what is delivered, to be able to build on it in our own school? I think there's two things to that. You are welcome to come and see the elements in university, most definitely, to see how we do it. But also, if there's, when you've looked at the Brightspace training, when all of that is available, or if there are certain aspects that you think would be useful to you, just you can contact me, and it's definitely something that we would be able to work with individual schools on to support you building that into your own school CPD programme. So most definitely, if that's something you'd like to look at further, my email address will be at the end, and we can have a look at that as well. Okay, hope I've answered that question. I'll pass over to Helen. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Helen York. I'm the College Academic Lead for Partnership and Placement. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the funding. And I know it all sounds quite scary. We've all suddenly got to do 20 hours of training. It's up to 20 hours of training. And as Anne explained, some of the training that we already do with you is included in that 20 hours. And I think that's important. So just to go through that bit, all the training that is undertaken on Brightspace will be logged. So any training that your teachers do via Brightspace is logged. And you all know, I know, that if you get DFE funding, you have to keep an audit trail of what you're applying for the funding for. So the logging on Brightspace will support you in that. So, for example, for each placement, we currently do an online briefing. There's a link on our website, and we do it like this as a PowerPoint. In future, there will be a link on our website, but those online briefings will be through Brightspace. And so that time spent on the Brightspace looking at the placement that you're going to be supporting, that can be claimed for. So in some ways, it's up to 20 hours, but a lot of all of the stuff that you're already doing this year will come into scope for hours to go towards your 20 hours. And if you look at the bottom of this PowerPoint, it says that for each mentor that completes the full 20 hours of training, a school can claim £876. If a mentor undertakes fewer than 20 hours of training, the funding is calculated at £43.80 per hour. So I've just mentioned some training that we already do, which hasn't been funded by the DFE in the past, that for next year you can claim funding for. So I think that's important, that it's not all new and it's not all different. And I know we keep saying that, but I think when it comes down to funding, it helps to understand that. So mention the online briefings. Also, tutors come into school and do visits, and during those visits we talk about effective observations. We share our subject specific prompts, all of which you're used to. We do joint observations. We use the assessment tracker together to look at how we are going to assess trainees. We talk about the experiences that trainees will need across the placement, how that can be supported, the subjects that they might be teaching, and the opportunities that they can get, that you can arrange for them in school, and that everyday support that you give them. And so that again is mentor training, and we always do that. You always give up your time for it. So from 24-25, you can also claim for that time, and that will be part of the 20 hours training. That training we will log within our logging, but I'd also suggest that you log our tutor visits as training, because on the next slide there is a link to the training manual, the funding manual. But as you know, with the DFE, it's good to have all, you know, to be able to audit yourself and know what training you've had. So I just kind of put that in. So schools that can claim funding for 24-25, and at the moment, and I don't think it's going to change, there is only DFE funding for mentor training in 24-25, though they haven't asked for any additional funding from the Treasury going forward, and now we've got a general election. Everything will change anyway. So if you think this funding, if you think this mentor training is going to be good for you and good for your schools, and I really think it would be, there's some brilliant stuff that's been put together, then think about how you might be able to make use of the funding this year. So for you to claim for a mentor, they must be employed by your school. They undertake up to 20 hours of initial mentor training, and they mentor at least one trainee. And the important bit here, always have intended to mentor a trainee, as evidenced by schools arranging for ITT trainees at their schools. So if you've given us offers and we've confirmed the offers, which says we intend to place at your school, and then we don't place a PGCE or a BA1, which for this year is are the trainees that attract that mentor funding. If we've intended to, then, and you've undertaken the training in good faith, then you can still claim for it, and we can still track that training. So I think that's an important thing to think about. Feel like that. Thank you. So there is with all DFE funding, this funding is from the DFE, and it is to support the requirements that came about through the market review of the ITT provision. And in that review, it felt the need to strengthen mentor training in schools. So an important point here is that as a school hosting an ITT trainee, or we call them an associate teacher, you must ensure that the trainee has one dedicated mentor during their placement, unless the mentor's a job share. Other teachers may support elements of the trainee's placement, but schools can only claim funding for the training time of the trainee's dedicated mentor. Now that's straight from the funding manual, and we know that you'll have questions about that, and those questions I think will be most easily answered on a one-to-one basis, because different schools organise their ITT support in different ways. But that's the line from the funding. And also the ITT criteria talks about up to 20 hours training. So we have got some there is some flexibility in terms of discussing your training needs, ensuring that your ITT mentors understand our curriculum, understand how to give effective feedback, and understand how to support trainees in terms of their professional development. And we know we've got some really good mentors out there. And part of this, remember, is you can get additional funding for training that you're already doing and that you'll do again next year, because that goes every year. We have online briefings every year. We have tutors in school every year. So there's some training there that we already do. Moving forward to the BCU payments. We know it's a contribution, and these won't change. These won't disappear. We know it's a contribution to the wonderful support that you give to our trainees, and we know that lots of our school partners only work with us and are very, very loyal to us and give us multiple placements. So we've tried to change our payment formula so that those schools that have worked with us and continue to work with us in a way that really supports our training and our trainees become embedded in their schools. We try to show through our payment structures now how much we value that partnership with you. In terms of payments, if you've been having any problems with payments and you haven't been paid, now BCU at last has a dedicated team who are ensuring that all back payments are made. So if you do have any queries or you do have any questions or you want a specific payment followed up, I popped my email at the beginning of the chat, and I think it's at the end of the slide too. Just contact me with what you're chasing, and I know who to talk to, and they work really quickly. So let's hope that we can get any back payments sorted very quickly. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Helen. So just to move on to sort of an overview of, as a result of today's meeting, the actions that you as head teacher or IT mentor, would be really helpful if you could help us to support us in getting those essential placements. I know for PGs and for BA year 2s, 1s and 3s, they're going out into your schools, and we know that you've worked really well with our associate teachers before. So if you haven't already and have been hanging on to this meeting to complete that placement information pack and the registration, please, hopefully you'll feel more reassured after today's session about how we're going to support you and how we're going to support mentoring moving forward next year. If you do have the names of anybody now who you think that would be relevant to start looking at the Brightspace content, or more importantly to complete that diagnostic to find out how much the training they need to complete or need to APEL, then please, by all means, register those mentors. The link's already also on the private partnership page as well. And as Helen has said, keeping that record of placement offers is really important so that you have that trail, that thread trail, of email trail of your intentions to support us. So, hopefully we will obviously really look forward to continue working with you and your mentors in schools to ensure that our associate teachers, have a great experience with you as we're preparing, our schools for our future teachers in the region. I don't know if there's any questions that have arisen throughout the chat as we've been talking. Obviously, this is a great time to be able to have a look at those questions. And just before we end, we will share the contact emails for colleagues to be able to, if you have got a specific query that is related to your school and not relevant for this forum, then obviously please either stay on the line after this call or obviously email the relevant person. So I'm just going to stop recording, and then we can have anybody who would like to share any information or would like